Okay, this is a Chapter 7 topic, but I thought I'd introduce it at the end of Chapter 4 because it's a very basic piece of knowledge that I feel you should get in a first course in fluid mechanics. The mechanical and aerospace students will get more on this topic in subsequent courses. In this presentation, I'll give just a little bit of history of boundary layer theory and a very basic introduction to the concept of the boundary layer. There are entire graduate level textbooks on this topic, like this famous one by Schlichting, which is from my personal library. We'll start by considering the boundary layer on a flat plate. This is another case where flow transitions from a smooth, steady laminar flow to an unsteady, chaotic turbulent flow. Again, like flow in a pipe, this phenomenon depends on the Reynolds number, but as you'll see, defined in a slightly different way. I'll also show you some very nice flow visualization results from a water tunnel and some CFD results. And I'll end by relating this concept to the drag force on an aircraft wing caused by the viscous shear stress at the surface, which is sometimes called skin friction. At cruising conditions, skin friction causes about 50% of the total aerodynamic drag for a modern jetliner. The mathematics of boundary layer theory were first proposed by Ludwig Prandtl, a German engineer, in 1904. The main idea was to divide the flow into two regions. There's an inner region near the surface where the fluid velocity is reduced by the action of viscosity. So we have the no-slip condition at the wall, and the velocity increases as you move normal to the plate until you reach the free stream velocity. This region is called the boundary layer, and the thickness of the boundary layer is usually denoted by the symbol delta. Outside of the near wall region, flow can be treated as inviscid, and that's an important fluid dynamics term. Inviscid means having no viscosity. Of course, all real fluids have viscosity, but the flow outside of the boundary layer behaves like it doesn't have any viscosity. And that's the genius idea of Prandtl. So if you were trying to solve flow over an airplane wing, for example, you'd use Prandtl's boundary layer theory near the surface, where the effects of fluid viscosity are important, but the flow away from the surface can be solved as if the flow is inviscid. And the approximation of no viscosity greatly simplifies the solution of the Navier-Stokes equations. In other words, the equations of motion of the fluid. You end up with Euler's equation, which we talked about in a previous Chapter 4 presentation. And that's relatively easy to solve compared to the Navier-Stokes. So you can get some very useful engineering solutions by treating the two fluid regions differently. Of course, in 1904, this was a time before modern computers and CFD, so this was a major technical breakthrough at the time. And that's one of the reasons why Prandtl is a giant in the field of thermal fluids and sometimes called the father of modern aerodynamics. The simplest example of a boundary layer is external flow over a flat plate with no pressure gradient in the flow direction. So you have a steady, uniform flow approaching the plate. This is called the free stream velocity, U infinity. We know that the fluid sticks at the surface, and as you move away from the plate, the velocity increases until you reach the free stream velocity. So the blue shaded region here is the boundary layer. It's the near wall region where the fluid is slowed down by the action of viscosity. And in the white area above the boundary layer, the flow has the free stream velocity, U infinity. By definition, the outer edge of the boundary layer is defined to be the location where the fluid velocity is equal to 0.99 times U infinity. So in other words, it's where the flow velocity is within 1% of the free stream velocity. Again, the local boundary layer thickness is denoted by symbol delta. On a thin flat plate, the boundary layer thickness is almost zero at the leading edge and grows as you move downstream. Unless there's a lot of turbulence in the free stream, the boundary layer that develops near the leading edge of the plate will be initially laminar. So you get this laminar boundary layer regime. This boundary layer gets thicker and thicker and then eventually goes unstable. It becomes wavy. Now you might wonder, why does this happen? As we discussed for pipe flow, it's the small vortices in the free stream that cause this effect. Very small disturbances in the upstream flow get amplified in the shear layer. These small eddies grow and grow, and they get swept downstream, and they eventually produce large waves. So you get this transition region where the waviness of the flow grows. These waves get amplified as they move downstream, and eventually you get a fully turbulent boundary layer. So the flow becomes unsteady and consists of chaotic vortices and eddies. As shown in the sketch, the thickness of the boundary layer grows more quickly in the turbulent regime. Again, as with pipe flow, which you saw in Lab 2, the dimensionless number used to characterize the boundary layer is the Reynolds number, but this time we use a different characteristic dimension. For pipe flow, we use the inside diameter of the pipe in the Reynolds number, but for flow over a flat plate, the characteristic dimension is the distance from the leading edge, x. So the Reynolds number is fluid density, free stream velocity, times the distance from the leading edge divided by the dynamic viscosity. This means that the Reynolds number changes along the plate. The Reynolds number will get larger and larger as you move downstream. The Reynolds number at which transition from laminar to turbulent flow starts is referred to as the critical Reynolds number. The distance where transition starts is denoted x crit, where critical refers to the fact that you're starting the flow transition. And for general engineering purposes, the rule of thumb is that transition starts at a Reynolds number of about 5 times 10 to the 5 for a flat plate. Now, this is just an approximation. For example, you could get transition at a lower Reynolds number, so in other words, closer to the leading edge, if there was a high level of free stream turbulence, or if the surface of the plate was roughened. So recall that for a pipe, we took the critical Reynolds number to be about 2,300, but for flow over a flat plate, the critical Reynolds number for transition is about 500,000, based on the distance from the leading edge. This is a flow visualization image of laminar to turbulent transition of a boundary layer on a flat plate. What you're seeing is a top view of the plate with water flowing from left to right, and dye has been injected so you can see the flow disturbances. So you can see the initial laminar boundary layer near the leading edge, which eventually goes wavy. By the way, these initial streamwise streaks are called Tolmian-Schlichting waves, which are named after the former students of Ludwig Prandtl who studied this phenomenon. And then further downstream, the flow eventually goes fully turbulent. As a side note, you may have observed a similar type of flow transition in everyday life. This is a buoyant plume from a cigarette. Here, of course, the flow is caused by the rising hot air off the ember. Like boundary layer flow, you can see the initial laminar plume, followed by a beautiful periodic wavy region, which eventually bursts into full turbulence. This involves much of the same physics as transition in a boundary layer. So now you know what a boundary layer is, you might wonder, how thick is a typical boundary layer? To illustrate this, I've done a quick CFD calculation of laminar airflow over a flat plate with a length of 10 centimeters. This was done with SolidWorks Flow Simulation. This image shows contours of constant velocity. So blue is 0 at the surface and red is the free stream velocity. The results in this image are for a free stream velocity of just 75 millimeters a second. So that's a relatively slow flow, which happens to correspond to a Reynolds number based on the plate length of 500. At these conditions, the boundary layer thickness at the end of the plate is about 22 millimeters. But as you increase the airspeed, the boundary layer gets much thinner. So that's 500, this is 1,000, this is 5,000, and then finally, these results are for a wind speed of 1.5 meters per second, which corresponds to a Reynolds number of about 10,000, so still laminar. But at these conditions, the boundary layer thickness at the end of the plate is only about 5 millimeters. So you get the idea. Boundary layers for most real-world conditions are quite thin. They only extend a short distance from the surface. Of course, as wind speed increases, the viscous drag on the plate also increases. And that leads me to the last thing I want to say about boundary layers in this presentation. Recall from Chapter 1 that the viscous drag on a surface is equal to the dynamic viscosity times the velocity gradient evaluated at the surface. That's the shear stress that will act to push the plate to the right. In aerodynamics, this viscous force is called skin friction. Now, the upper diagram here shows the velocity profile in the laminar part of the boundary layer, and the lower diagram shows the velocity profile in the turbulent boundary layer for the same magnitude of free stream velocity. The important difference to note is that in turbulent flow, vortices transport momentum toward the wall. The key result is that the surface gradient, the surface velocity gradient, di-u, di-y, is much higher for turbulent flow than for laminar flow. As you move away from the wall, in turbulent conditions, the velocity increases more quickly. So that means that the turbulent shear stress will be much greater than the laminar shear stress. So the skin friction in the turbulent part of the boundary layer will be much higher than in the laminar part of the boundary layer. You might wonder why this matters. Well, consider flow over the wing of an aircraft. I found this wonderful CFD visualization of a boundary layer on an airfoil by Magoob et al. This is at a Reynolds number of 2 × 10⁵ based on the chord length of the wing. You can see the laminar, wavy, and turbulent regimes. And this has some important engineering implications. Skin friction significantly impacts the fuel consumption of jet aircraft. At cruising conditions, the skin friction is about 50% of the total aerodynamic drag for a modern jetliner. So if you could somehow get laminar flow over the entire wing, you could save a lot of fuel and a lot of GHG emissions. And that completes this presentation.